right, welcome back to the cast, everybody. We got a special episode today. We got with us Chris Kohne, who I'm sure a bunch of you have seen on Facebook already, or our page. You've probably seen the post about 11 Mile out there where Chris got flipped. But thanks for coming on the show, Chris. We're going to talk about kind of what happened and just the lessons learned from it.
Yeah.
Cool, dude. Yeah, we're glad to have you. And first off, I guess tell us a little bit about yourself. You know, where you're from, and how'd you get into kayak fishing and find the club?
I'm from Colorado. I pretty much grew up here. I've been fishing here my whole life. How I found the club was my boat was broken, and my buddy sold me a kayak for like $400 or $500. I got a Mariner. I had to put a bunch of money in it to get it on the lake, but once I got out there and started fishing in it, I never fixed my boat. I just bought a better kayak and just kept on with the kayak fishing. I don't know what it is about being so close to the water or what it is about kayak fishing, but I absolutely love it. I would never fish any other way.
Yeah, dude.
So that's pretty much how I got into kayak fishing. I've always been into fishing. That's always been my jam.
Cool. And then what type of fishing do you do? I know you do a lot of salmon fishing, but what's like your favorite species to go after?
I don't even know if I have a favorite species. Like, that's why I've never really gone away from the multi-species tournaments, because I have severe ADD. In 1 minute I'll be a salmon fisherman, and the next minute I'll chase flathead catfish, and then the next minute I'll be throwing frogs at Brush Hollow. I really don't have a set plan or anything that I do. I just kind of chase the next good bite, really.
Right on, dude. How'd you find the club?
Just from Facebook.
Cool. Right on, dude. Yeah, I was the same way. So. Well, cool, man. Let's get right into it. You were out at 11 Mile. Let's hear the story. What happened, dude?
Well, it pretty much started bad. Like, I got there, the wind was supposed to be like 3 to 5 miles an hour, and it was already blowing probably 10 to 15. I started showing out to my spot. I already noticed I was having a hard time keeping my boat straight and tracking how I wanted to track. I actually thought about turning around, and looking back, that probably would have been a good idea because salmon fishing is really dependent on speed, and anybody that has trolled in a kayak and wind knows keeping your speed is pretty much impossible.
Yeah.
It wasn't too bad until I got past the island with all the seagulls. I don't know what it's called. I thought it was deer, but I guess it's not. As soon as I got around that island, it was pretty bad. Really, the going in part, it was pretty simple. I just reached too far from my downrigger.
Okay.
And usually, anytime I reach outside of my kayak, I'm going to point the kayak straight, and I'm going to grab whatever I need to grab. But for some reason, the wind blew my kayak sideways, and instead of straightening it out like I should have, I was in a rush and I reached for it. And that's the next thing I know, I'm underwater. I was like, oh, I guess I shouldn't have done that. It's pretty early in the trip. And then after that, I went in the water. I have a PDF from Sportsman's, one of the inflatable ones.
Yep.
And it inflated like it was supposed to.
Okay.
At that point, I flipped my kayak over, which was pretty tough, but I found the easiest way was to just grab the drive. That got me enough so that I could flip it over. I got my kayak flipped over. I still had all my rods. Everything was still pretty much how it was. So I figured that I dodged a bullet at this point, which I didn't. But so that's when I tried to climb back in the kayak. I was a tree trimmer and worked on roofs my whole life, so I never really thought that would be a problem climbing back in my kayak. I guess that was could have been a fatal flaw.
Damn.
So when I went to climb back in my kayak, I literally was going to pull my knee up, caught another wave, it flipped me back over. When it flipped me back over, my PDF got caught, I'm guessing, on the pedal of the kayak, which I'm surprised that didn't cut me up, because I have those native pedals, and they're really sharp. So I don't know how I didn't catch any of those pedals when I was under the kayak. But when I flipped over, that I caught, and I could not get from underneath my kayak. I was stuck under my kayak for, I would say, a good 20 to 30 seconds trying to figure out how to get the button on the life vest undone so that I could get my head above water. Even after I got it undone, all that got me was enough so that I could get my head above water. I was still stuck. So at that point, I had to try to get to my whistle, but it was still stuck under my kayak on the top of my life vest, exactly where it's supposed to be. I still couldn't get to it. So at that point, I just yelled for help. Luckily, I'm loud, and the other kayaker heard me. He got over there. There wasn't much that he could do in another kayak, but what he could do was he was able to hold my hand, and I was able to brace myself up on his kayak so I could get my life vest unstuck. But by that time, I'd already been in the water for, I'd say, about 10 minutes, and it didn't take long. I was zapped. Like, I literally had no energy left. At that point, a boat pulled up. We were able to flip my kayak. It had been upside down for a good 10, 15 minutes. All my rods were gone. Luckily, everything I have, I picked up from little threads in the club, like all my tackle boxes are sealed. So they all floated.
Okay.
My battery box was sealed, so it floated. Like everything floated but my rods. I know I'm going to probably get grief for that, but I'm kind of with a couple other people in the club that I don't want to get tangled in them. So if I lose rods because they end up in the lake, I'd rather that happen than get tangled in a bunch of hooks and line.
I'm with you. Yeah.
And then after I got to the boat, like we got my kayak secured and picked up everything except for my net. I think my net was the only thing I never found. And my spinner box, unfortunately I had that open because I had just changed both my my rigs on my poles, so that went to the bottom of 11 Mile. So I ended up losing a few poles, but I actually took my Hummingbird apart and let it dry and put it back together before I threw it in the trash, and it turned back on. So just a couple of poles, and I'm obviously going to buy another life vest because I'm never using that one again.
Yeah.
Definitely traumatized from the life vest.
Dude, that's so, yeah. I mean, Alex kind of had the same thing when he went in with his electronics. I think they can take a lot more. I mean, obviously, it can be in the pouring rain and everything, but his was submerged for a bit too, and he just had to really dry it out. And I think he lost the battery. That was all he lost on his.
Yeah, luckily I have mine in the Yak Power battery box because I keep it behind my seat.
Yeah,
so it was in a battery box, so that it was just floating there, still on.
There you go.
It did mess the USB port up in it, but other than that, it was fine. I did lose my GoPros because I have them on a camera mount plugged in, so obviously those weren't going to survive. But that's all replaceable. I mean, if you kayak long enough, I'm surprised I made it this long without replacing the GoPro. To be honest, I still have the one I originally bought.
Jeez, yeah, I'm the same way. Mine are old. So a couple things I wanted to ask you about it right away. Like when you got in the water, what was that shock? Like 11 Mile. First off, what was
cold.
Yeah. So
like
what was
the first thing you notice? Like is how cold it is and how hard it is to breathe. Like that's the first two things you're gonna notice.
What was the temperature? Do you remember?
It's in the 60s, but it was in the early morning, so I don't know, 55 or 60. But
Jeez.
I don't show up to 11 Mile until it gets 55 for that very reason. Everybody asks me why I haven't been there yet, and that's why. Even Pueblo, like I'll stretch it out. I'll fish offshore a little bit, and I think I'm going to keep that rule after this for sure.
Jeez.
I mean, unless you have a wetsuit or something, like, like there's no way. I was wearing all wool socks, all wool undergear, and I noticed as soon as I got out of the water, I started warming back up. So
Cool.
anybody that likes to go to the mountains, make sure you're wearing wool because it'll warm up even if it's wet. I was wondering if my NRS boots would take me to the bottom of the lake. They didn't. In case anybody was curious about that.
Nice. Yeah, I know Alex he didn't have his on, and they actually floated, I think, for him. So and
Nice.
they're kind of like a wetsuit. It's neoprene, so they should float. And then talk about the life jacket. So, yeah, me too. So you have an inflatable. Are you going to get another inflatable one, or are you going to?
No, definitely not. No, I have one that I got from Walmart. It's just a simple zip up in the front, and it has 2 straps that go around it. I took the straps out that are around it so that it just zips up. And then as soon as I get a couple dollars together, I'm gonna get what everybody else wears. I think they wear a Chinook or something like that.
Yeah. I think there's pros and cons to that. Like the inflatable ones, you got to service the thing, and I've got one too. And sometimes I'll wear it, but I actually like mine for fishing to be able to like keep my phone in it, keep things like my pliers up there. But also, I feel like since it's already tight on me, it has less of a chance to like get loose in a situation like that, or kind of get off and pull me into something.
Yeah.
But dude,
another thing real fast. When you first go in the water, it wasn't that bad, and then that PDF goes off. That almost gives you anxiety. Like I would much rather go in and not have to deal with that thing exploding because it's very loud and it's way bigger than what a normal life vest would be. You know what I mean? So when you're trying to climb back in your boat, if you're a kayaker, which we all are, I mean, it's going to be cumbersome. It's going to be hard to get back in your boat. I just would not recommend it.
Was it more restrictive, like around your neck area?
Yeah, it's just big. It fills up big. So like a normal life vest, it's cumbersome, but it's nowhere as big. Jeez. Like it fills up almost like one of the old orange life vests that went around your head. You know what I mean? Something like that.
Yeah, those are a pain in the butt. No one ever wears them because they're so terrible.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, dude.
And that's the reason I wanted that life vest is because I never take it off. I literally put it on before I push my kayak in the water, and I don't take it off until I pull my kayak out of the water. I've always been a big component of that. I actually had a nephew that died in a kayak accident because he wasn't wearing a life vest and he got blown out to shore and couldn't get back. So, like, I'm a big proponent in the life vest, just not the inflatable one so much anymore.
Yeah. And I know you got stuck under the kayak with the jacket, but I feel like you would still want to have a life jacket on even after you've been through that, just because of the water temps.
Definitely. Because the thing is, when you go in that life vest, in that water, I wouldn't have made it to flipping my boat over or any of that. Like, you're so cold. You need that to hold you up. But you don't think you do. Like, I was a tree trimmer and a roofer. I consider myself a fairly tough guy, and I was doing none of that. Like, after so much time in the water, you're done. And like I said, as soon as you go in the water, you start gulping in water. Like, it's the most terrifying thing you could ever imagine. And you're not going to not do it. Like, I remember thinking, like, wow, you can't even control that. I need to get out of under this water immediately. So, yeah, even though, like, I got tangled in my life vest, I wasn't cutting it off because I knew I was in cold water and I knew I needed it. I knew it was a very, very important. Very important. And I'm going to wear it every time I go out still.
Yeah, I've seen people in the water that are studs in the military, and there's like a reason. The hardest school in the military is dive school, and the water will humble you real fast, and it doesn't matter who you are. You'll have a breaking point in the water, and I've seen guys that are just absolute studs just crumble to the water. So it doesn't matter. I mean, you obviously have experience, doing physical things like tree climbing that you would think that would translate perfectly to getting back in, but you start losing dexterity, you start getting your anxiety up, your heart rate's out of control. You only got so long,
Yeah, your breathing is definitely out of control.
Yeah.
Probably doesn't help your heart rate.
So one of the things you said in there was like you just reached too far for your rods. There was another show we did. We did one with Alex. He went in reaching for a rod too, but he knew he was going in. And he was, I think, in like 6 feet of water or whatever when he went in right there, real close to the shore. But they had another. I think it was Outdoor Life or something. Had an article today on another kayaker reached for a rod, and then that was it. He got killed in an accident. But
I was actually hooking on my my stacker on my downrigger.
okay.
That stacker, you have to use both hands to clip it. And what I did was I put floaty on it like you would put on your keys on your boat so they can't sink. So I can clip it and I don't ever have to unclip it until I'm done fishing.
Cool.
So I don't have to reach over the kayak. But I was surprised. While I was reaching, I didn't feel uncomfortable. But as soon as that wave picked up just a little bit, it changed the dynamic faster than you could ever imagine. Like,
yeah,
I've been kayaking 7 years, never dumped, and it was just over in a second. Like,
yeah, center of gravity was just off.
Yeah, once you get, those things are super, super stable, but once you get past that point, it pretty much almost launches you.
Dude. So to go back to the life jacket, like one more time, some of the comments in there mentioned, like, what if you had a knife or whatever? And I think there's definitely a place for having a knife, but we kind of talked about this before the show. Like, what are your thoughts on having a knife on your, would it have helped in this situation necessarily?
I don't know if it would have helped in this situation or not, but what if I'd have got, I definitely am going to purchase an NRS knife that fits into the life vest. I've seen it on a couple other people's life vests. It doesn't look very intrusive. What if I would have got caught in one of my poles or my downrigger line? Or, there's a lot of stuff on the kayak. Like, maybe it wouldn't have mattered in this instance, but I definitely think it's a tool that should be had on the life vest. Because, if I was under there another 10 seconds, I might have had a different opinion on if I wanted to be connected to that life vest anymore. Because at that point, I would have been dying.
Yeah. We were talking before the show, and Chris, I don't know if I wanted to cut myself out of that life jacket.
Until I didn't know if my boots would even hold me up. So I didn't know if I just cut my life vest. I was in 67 feet of water. So if I started sinking, it was game over. So I wasn't about to cut my life vest until I knew I could float.
Jeez.
Which you don't know if you're underneath the kayak. So,
man, yeah, that's a tough call to make, especially at that point.
But I definitely, I'm not opposed to having a knife by any means. I did not disagree with any of them people. It could have been to the point where I needed one and I didn't have one. So that could have turned out very bad. I don't know, because if Roy would have got to me and I was still stuck underneath that, I don't think there would have been anything he could have done.
Yeah.
Because he couldn't flip my kayak. You can't flip a kayak over in the kayak. Like, if you have any right mind, you're not going to jump in that water. So, if I was stuck there, I just don't know what would have happened. There wouldn't have been much anybody could have done. So, yeah, I definitely think a knife is something that we should have on us.
Yeah. Another thing you mentioned was the wind. You said it was windier than you thought it was going to be, which out there in 11 miles, Spinney and Taro, those lakes are notorious for that. The wind picks up out of nowhere. Do you have, I've got my personal number of wind that I'm willing to go out in, but what?
Yeah,
what's your limit?
Mine's 15 miles an hour. I've been out in big waves and Spinney. One of the tournaments we had in Trinidad, it was crazy the whole tournament. I'm real comfortable in the wind. It wasn't past my comfort level.
Okay.
So, I'm not even going to change my comfort level because of that. All I would say is getting content saying, oh, I'm not going to turn my bow back into the wind before I grab this. That's what dumped me.
Yep. I completely get that. Yeah, I spent a lot of time in the Gulf fishing before when I lived down in Alabama, like Florida area, and that's the biggest thing that I carried out of there is that you got bigger waves coming in. If you put your bow into the wave, it breaks it, and you're so much better off. But the times that I've seen people, especially down in the Gulf, flipping coming back into shore, their kayak spins out from them. And
Yeah.
when they're coming in, it spins out, that wave hits, and it's going to roll you. Whereas if it's going to break, you're going to feel that break. You're going to come up, you're going to come down, and you're going to settle,
Yeah.
And I'm talking 3-footers, but it doesn't take as much, once you're on your side. If you get a roller come in, and especially if you're leaning, it's going to roll you.
Yeah, after I did, I was like, wow, that was dumb. Why didn't I just pedal forward? I didn't think I was going to get trapped and all that.
Yeah.
Another thing I'm going to do, the one thing that I heard online that I think would really help me in this situation is I'm going to put like a 3-foot piece of rope with a loop on the end of it, and I'm going to hook it under my seat. I think that was the best thing because that's the hardest thing is getting back in your kayak. And if I could have got back in my kayak when I first rolled it over, it wouldn't even have been a story. I probably would have still been posting salmon pictures that day. So
yeah, dude.
Like my main thing is like make sure you can get back in your kayak.
Yeah.
Maybe someone wasn't there that day, and that could have ended bad.
Yeah. So after you got out of the, you got into a boat, right? The kayak.
Yeah.
The boat over.
Which is like, I did not want to get in a boat. I'm like, man, I'm a kayaker.
I'd get in anything at that point. Yeah.
I know I was in danger at that point. It didn't matter, but I'd have rather had my rope. Like I said, I've been able to get back in there myself. I kayak a lot by myself, so I definitely have to, look at what happened and fix it. Make sure that I could get in my kayak next time.
Yeah. I mean, clearly you're shaken up. How long did it take to kind of not only just like how long did it take to warm up, and then how long did it take to kind of like get more? Because I'm sure like you're all spun out in the head. How long did it take to like just get back?
It didn't take too long. By the time the boat got me back to shore, I was pretty calm.
Yeah.
I don't know, maybe because all the times I almost fell off a roof or out of a tree. It takes me a little less time than normal people to calm down after an event like that, but I still think about it today. Like, you want to make sure, I just want to make sure before I go back out there that I, cross my T's and dot my I's, and just the little things, because it's the little things that get you out there. It's, I have my life vest, have my whistle, had everything everybody would think you would need to be safe. And there's a couple extra things I could have done.
Yeah. And I think that's, one of the things that we always hear is, guys posted in the club, especially, you see somebody that posts a video or something, and they got a fish and they're really proud of it, but they don't have a jacket on. And got guys in the comments, hey man, like cool fish, but please wear a life jacket. And it's like, we have rules for the tournaments. You have to have a life jacket, a whistle, your lights, all that stuff. But go ahead.
Those are great rules because those teach you the right practice.
Yeah, I think they do, but I think it's on us to go a little bit further. And one of the things that I try to do is it just teaches it. It's so important to know your equipment. Like you really know what was going to happen when that life jacket went off. And I'm not saying if you have a inflatable one like that, just go pop the CO.
Yeah, exactly. It costs $25 every time you do that. This is exactly why I didn't know. Like I've been into my other life vest, but not that one. So
I mean, that's maybe something that's not going to happen, and you're not going to practice necessarily flipping your kayak, in the beginning of the year. But hey, maybe when it's August and you're out on a lake that's hot and you don't have any rods on your kayak, you can go try it with others around, and that's something that you always see a bunch of videos of people like, hey, I'm going to practice flipping my kayak now and stuff. But maybe that's something to try. I think at least like you're saying, having the rope there and having something that you can grab, and at least having a plan.
Yeah, because you think you have a plan, but like you said, once you get in that water, all the plans change. Like it's not as easy as you think it's going to be. When your clothes are wet, they're a lot heavier than you think it's going to be. It's really hard to pull your body into that kayak.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Well, hey man, we're glad you're with us.
Yeah, me too. That was a scary one for sure.
Yeah, I'm glad you made it out. We kind of talked about what went right, what went wrong, and then the changes you made. What would you say your biggest takeaway was from the whole thing?
Just not like you said, know your equipment, and just always keep your bow into the wind. Like one little thing is going to put you in the lake or put you in a position you don't want to be in. And you might not think it's like that big of a deal to pedal a little bit more to get your bow straight before you drop that rock, because everybody wants to catch fish now. No one wants to wait, but just take the extra couple seconds to do what you got to do. Because if I know if I'd have straightened my kayak, that wouldn't happen. It just wouldn't happen.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, I don't know if this happened to you before or not, but I think of like the most dangerous, like hairy situations that I've been in. I haven't flipped mine yet, knock on wood or whatever, but I know it'll happen sometime. But the scariest situations that I've had have been when I'm trolling two lines and I get like snagged on one, and it's right when the storm's picking up, and it's like maybe I'm heading into the boat ramp, but I'm still keeping my lines out, but I'm fighting it. One gets snagged, and then at that point, you're trying to get the other one in. You're trying to keep your bow in the wind.
yeah,
And
and
you're trying to not
your
screw.
kayak goes sideways.
You're going to immediately, yeah, exactly. And I think that's maybe another thing to just talk about is, hey,
maybe you should throw one rod in the wind.
When it gets, know that limit and have it in your head before as a wall. Like, hey, if these situations happened, this is how I'm going to react to it. I could just drop to one rod because then it's not as big of a deal.
Yeah, and like I said, I'm like, I could have trolled spoons that day closer to the bank and, not had to use my stacker and all those clips and that extra stuff. And I would have caught a couple of rainbows, and it wouldn't have been what I wanted to do, but I would have went home safe. And I still would have had my GoPros and my rods. So, it ain't worth it, like everybody always says.
Yeah.
Not that was my intention, but
no, of course not.
Little things, you think you'll be all right. The one thing is, like, I was like, man, I'm taking waves over the bow. Maybe I should just call it. If you ever think that, go in.
Yeah.
I've never flipped before, and I don't think I ever remember thinking that before. So.
Yeah, I've had some situations where I've come in for like big thunderstorms down in the Gulf. That's the thing that got me. The waves picked up. They're coming over the bow really good. But I've been more uneasy in the water when winds pick up in like South Park, 11 Mile, Spinney, than because it's out of nowhere, man. And
yeah, there's nothing out there. That's if you fish out east, like I fish out east too. Like no matter what, you gotta be prepared. Like I don't think I've ever been to John Martin when my scupper plugs in. Even if they say it's gonna be calm all day, 2-mile-an-hour winds, I'm not believing them.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I agree. That's like the last point that I kind of want to bring up about this. I was thinking about it today, getting ready for this interview, and I think another point is, guys, we'll see some people get on and be like, hey, I got this kayak, you get the Walmart special kayak. Just know that like these kayaks have limitations to them, man. We have a kayak. It's a little Perception, and it's nothing against that brand, but my wife wants to come out kayaking with me, and that's not going to do the same thing that my pro angler is going to do, my Hobie or a Native or an Old Town, as far as stability and safety on the water, especially in Colorado. If we're floating a river in Tennessee where we used to live, that's great for that, and you can have a good time doing it. But boy, out here, I see some kids without life jackets on these cheap, couple $100 kayaks, and it's scary, dude.
Yeah, paddle boards too.
Yeah, exactly.
They're
Yeah,
next to me, and I'm like, I'm nervous. I'm in a 13-foot boat that's like about as stable as you could buy, and you just don't have a care in the world. You don't even look nervous. Like I
yeah,
would be
dude.
nervous if I was you. And
I've
they always
that's
have their
good.
life vest on the front of their boat. That's one thing I wanted to bring up that I forgot. You're not getting to the front of that boat. I never got to my net wherever it ended up. So if that was
Yeah,
my life vest, it would have floated off. I don't know how you get to it. You go to swim around that, you start losing. It's just,
yeah,
yeah, wear it. Don't put it on the front of your boat.
yeah. Yeah, dude. Yeah, I always see them. You know, Horsetooth's our next one. Last year, I think there were like 3 or 4 of us, and we were on the north side. That Satanka Cove is all paddle boarding and kayaking. And the wind picked up, kicked them out of the cove into the main channel. You know, it's probably 70, 100 feet of water. Giant wakeboard boats coming through. And, you know, you just got, you know, 8-year-old kids. You know, their parents are on another kayak or a paddleboard. They're on that paddleboard. And they're just, whew, they're gone, you know, 20-mile-an-hour winds coming through, just sweeping them away. And yeah, a bunch of us spent, you know, part of the tournament just rescuing these dudes and taking them back into the cove. But yeah, same thing. You know, life jackets are just strapped to the front of the thing, and you know, in a bad situation, like you said, you're never going to get to those.
The other thing is, you think that shore is 100 feet away, and it'll be 500 feet, half a mile away. Like, oh, I could just swim there. You won't. You probably won't make it.
Yeah,
That happened to me in Pueblo when I was younger. Like, not even kayak related. Just think it's a lot closer. I'll just swim my kayak over if I can't get in it. Probably not gonna happen.
yeah, absolutely. Well, hey, man, thanks for coming on.
No problem. Hopefully,
We appreciate everything, man, and we're glad you're good. And like you said, hey, man, if if there's anything to learn from this, it's wear your life jacket, have a plan, and you know your equipment. So
yeah, for sure.
cool. Well, hey guys, thanks for tuning in, and we'll catch you on the next one. Chris, have a good night, man.
You too, man. Thank you.
Yep.